Hey, good evening and welcome to Whiskey Wednesday. Well, technically it's not evening because we're doing a little pre-recorded show because of a scheduling conflict here, but regardless, hopefully you'll still enjoy the content. Joining per usual is the ninja, Dr. Jason Pittman. Today we're going to be talking about meeting fatigue. I'm your host, Dr. Dan Ford, and this is Echelon Orchid.
Guess who's back?
Ninja, my friend, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you, Dr. Danford?
I am awesome. I'm not drinking any coffee at the moment, or even whiskey. It's a little early for whiskey at the moment. So I've got the good old where's this thing at? Love this stuff. Um, I've really been enjoying doing um, ketones, and this
Oh, okay.
um, this one fillet. So I happen to really like this little brand. It's called Tiger's Blood. Evidently, it's some like Japanese fruit or something like that. But I was like, that sounds pretty cool, but it does taste like a little bit like a coconut like thing. I have no idea if that's what it is or not. But I'm like, Tiger's Blood. I just want to tell people I'm drinking Tiger's Blood.
That's some Charlie Sheen level shit right there, dude.
Yeah, I don't know, but it tastes good, and it just I've been really following quite a bit of some of the stuff Rhonda Patrick and her colleagues have been doing about the mind, your brain power while being in ketosis.
Hmm.
And so I'm like, all right, well, the longer I can kind of stay in ketosis, and I still eat food, um, which kind of can take you out of ketosis if you're not doing the right thing. But this stuff puts you like right back into it. So I'm like, hey, I just do like two of these a day, and feel like uh, I feel like what people describe being on like Adderall, like they just feel like they're wired in. Um, that's what they say. I've never been on Adderall or anything like that, so I couldn't really tell you. But I feel like, hey, I feel like there's more energy and the focus is there. I wish I had this stuff while I was doing my MBA and doctorate.
Well, there's a lot of science around fasted or semi-fasted states, which if when you fast, you will start producing more ketones, and then when you take exogenous ketones like that, that'll ramp that system up. And I'll tell you, man, that's why for the majority of my life, I've not eaten breakfast. I don't enjoy it. It doesn't make me feel good. At most, I'll have a granola bar or something, right? Or a protein shake. But even then, man, I can tell the difference. And I'll tell you, you know this. I'm going into my third week now on TRT, and I can definitely feel a difference now. Like a good difference. Um, my mood overall is way better. I don't require naps. I'm able to recover faster from exercise, which is a big thing that I wanted. I didn't have a sex drive problem, but I'm interested to see how that affects it because, interestingly enough, man, my sex drive went through the roof when my testosterone started going down. So, like, there was an overcompensation of compatible adjacent hormones. So, I'm interested to see if that now tapers off. My sleep pattern has changed a little bit. I'm going to bed a little later, sleeping a little longer, but I feel more rested. Yeah.
What's interesting, you talk about like the sleep aspect. Like, so the Aura Ring will tell me, and it changes almost daily, what my ideal bedtime should be today.
Mm-hmm.
And based on your energy levels, based on your how quickly your heart rate got back to a proper resting heart rate, things like that. So it's quite interesting. Um, it's part of So I stopped doing the. I think I had told you. I'm not doing the straight TRT, but I stopped doing the other pieces because I'm like, wait a minute. I think part of like I want to see where everything's at when I get into the proper shape that I feel like I should at least be in. Not necessarily what I want to be, but I'm trying to get myself back to a point where I felt healthy. And so even though all the doctors and stuff like that would say someone of my size, I should be like 160 pounds. Dude, I remember what it felt like being 160 pounds and I felt like garbage. I always felt good, like in that 178 to 182. I would fluctuate, and so I'm pretty close. Like it's another 7 pounds is what at this point, and then like all right, now let me maintain that for a while, see how my energy levels are doing because I'm still eating the way that I've been doing, and then I'm going to go back and get my hormone levels tested to see all right now where am I at, because now it is based on, hey, me not being, you know, 220 pounds, me being, 180 pounds of pure beautifulness.
Right. Well, it's such a because this is a good segue to meeting fatigue, right? Because it's fatigue in general, but it's also a complex system. And so, like, I know because of my background, in order to feel mentally healthy, I need to work out every day, and I need to work out at an intensity that's not normal. Like, I can't just go for a walk. That's not. I like walking, but that's not the workout I'm talking about, right? I need to go hard a little bit to drain some energy out of my systems.
Yeah, you're
But
like a
I
little
found
chihuahua.
myself, yeah, kind of, man, kind of, or a greyhound.
Yeah.
But I found myself as I'm getting older, unable to persist through that level of intensity. And I was getting to a point where I could only work out every other day. Maybe I could stick a brick back to back day to, 2 days in a row. I couldn't do 3 days in a row anymore. It was just too much. And other adjacent systems started to drop. Like I'd have to take a fucking nap in the afternoon or after dinner almost every day. And listen, man, I just ain't got time for that. I'm not interested in that. My mood would fluctuate, like with depression, not clinical depression, but I would feel like a general malaise or sadness. And
Yeah, no, I get it.
listen, man, it's already started to go away, which allows me to focus more on myself and the things that I care about, which makes me happier. And so this complexity then spreads out. Now I've had zero side effects so far, man. I'm sure some things will kick in a couple of weeks when I start loading up some more, but
Yeah, well, I think you some interesting things, there, just like, because the type of working out that you're doing is different than what others, and likely what you may wind up seeing is that on some of those other days, you just have to do a different kind of workout because that won't be a
yeah,
walk, but like because mainly, you do a lot of cycling. I don't know if you're doing back any lifting again or not.
no,
No.
no, because I'm in a situation like TK was where I really just want to lean my body out now. I'm not interested in building heavy muscle mass for power anymore.
Yeah, but you may need to go to, I mean, still go like to something weight like, rather than just your cycling on those off days. Because I mean, that's basically I think what you mainly do is you're doing all your different, um, cycling exercises. I'm
Yeah,
assuming.
and
I don't know.
the beauty of that, unlike running, because running's always running, right? So there's a base level of difficulty because you're moving your body weight, right? What's nice with cycling is you can if you're in tune with the science of it, and there's an enormous amount of sports exercise science around cycling in particular, you can really customize workouts to your physiological performance. Which now, see, this is the difference. I don't have an Aura ring, but I use the Garmin system, right? And the Garmin system's reactive. So it won't tell me how hard to work out before I work out, but after I'm done working out, it'll tell me how much to rest before I should work out at a certain level again.
Oh wow.
And then you can tune that into the type of structured training programs you're using, and that that's the way to go about it for me.
Yeah, I mean that's still data, right? It's just,
Yeah. Hmm.
that they're both valid. It's just a matter of what do you got to utilize the tools at your disposal, right? And if it goes outside of, like, I'm at a point like I'm not looking to bring in a whole nother ecosystem of things. It's got to
Right.
fit into my current ecosystem, and if it doesn't, I'm not interested. I don't have time.
Right. No, and see the reason why Garmin works for me is because like running, my pod that I use to measure cadence
Yeah.
and oscillation, shit like that, is Garmin. All my cycling gear that measures power and my computer and all that stuff, it's all Garmin. So it's all in that ecosystem. It's all like consistent.
Yeah. All right. So now we'll pivot to this meeting fatigue thing. So, I really hate giving Elon Musk any credit for anything. But I do at least like some things that he said. Like I said, I think he's basically a fraud technology wise. I think he's a business person and understands business. I think that's what he really is, and not this tech person like everyone wants to believe. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think I am. you have to want to come on our show and debate. So, you know, open
Right.
invitation.
Proof's in the pudding.
Yeah, open invitation. Um, but what he's one of the little clips that I saw him in, and I think this is if more companies did this, especially now that many are adopting a more hybrid, if not almost fully remote for a lot of job types, is is that if you are not contributing to a meeting or you are not receiving any type of valid information, then you should just get up and leave the meeting. Like no questions asked, no shaming the person, just there's no mutual benefit or even any benefit. Like there's none. Like I always like to have relationships that are mutually beneficial. Like, hey, you and
Mhm.
I exchange quite a bit. It's pretty 50-50. Sometimes it might be a little bit my way, your way, but it's pretty 50-50. We're each getting something and giving something out of our friendship. Same thing when I have to tell some of my, engineers and stuff that work for me. I'm like, look, money is at like the at most number three on my list of when I take a job. The first is what am I going to be able to do for that organization, and the second is whoever is my boss, in this case, the CEO. What is that person going to be able to do to help me get to the next level? So mutually, in this case he's providing me something, and I'm providing the whole organization something. If those two things aren't there, the money doesn't matter. Like I have to have those two things. So, in a meeting though, I think it's a little bit different because I may be the person that has to give information, and so a lot of people there may need to receive it. But if they start hearing the information and what's going on about it, and they're like, "Yeah, this isn't for me," the mindset that I think we need to shift in people is that you don't need to be at a meeting to be important. And so showing up to the meeting doesn't mean that you're doing work. I would rather have more results. And so if you go, yeah, this information isn't for me, I have nothing to contribute. I'm not. Hey, leave and go get your job done. That portion of it. Don't. A lot of people will shame them. I was saying this to my CEO. I'm like, I think we need to start doing this. And he's like, I like it. He is. It's going to take some time for people to realize. I'm like, it won't be. I'll just get up and start walking out of our CO meeting. I'm like, this sucks. I'm out.
Yeah.
Well, I won't quite do that, but because there is actually always value in those meetings. But there's others that I'm just like, all right, not not getting anything here, and I do leave, but I think we need to make it more of a culture. And then by doing that, I think we will minimize meeting fatigue because people won't just be showing up because they feel some type of social pressure to do so.
Totally agree, man. And I'll tell you, here's where I start. I learned this at my first startup. We had a big principle of, like, for instance, we rotated through a pager because we were on call for network or system support, right? And the idea and the philosophy was when you have that pager, you're responsible for making sure the issue gets resolved. You're not responsible for doing all the work yourself, right? And the same thing, like when that was just our general operating philosophy is you're always responsible for what you're responsible for. You're not necessarily responsible for doing all the work yourself, right? Okay. So if you take that forward to a meeting, one of the things that for me creates a lot of meeting fatigue is the idea of people creating a meeting, spamming it out to as many people as possible without any thought of who actually can contribute to what the agenda is. And then, of course, not including the agenda. And so the idea in those cases, if I put myself in those people's minds, is I'm just going to invite people blindly and hope that we get something out of this at some point, right? And that creates a lot of churn and fatigue, especially then because you're going to end up having another meeting to actually focus on what should have been focused on, and it just rolls downhill as a big turd. And that's low level. And so what I mean is like low type, not high performing, low performing corporate culture. And to me, that's a dead giveaway that I'm not even agreeing to go to this. I'm not going to show up. I'm not even going to go like, because it's just, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? Whereas if you pivot around, which is kind of what you're talking about, if the person booking the meeting puts some forethought into the purpose of the meeting and who's being invited such that they can contribute or get something out of that purpose, it's thoughtful. and you empower people with distributed leadership and autonomy, then it kind of as a social group governs itself, and people come and go as they need to, and they contribute. Because look, man, in those low level, low performer type meetings, how many times have you been there and one person talks for an hour, nobody else says anything, and at the end everybody's like, oh, we got to meet again because nothing happened. Like, to me, that's pretty common in those types of cultures. And it's like, why, man? How does the majority of people here have nothing better to do? And more importantly, how does the leadership a layer above this not see this and realize how much money is being spent to achieve nothing? Like,
Absolutely true. And like when I was talking with my CEO, he's like, "Hey, I think we need to start using a little bit more of the optional aspects of meeting invites." And he brought up, he was invited to a sprint demo. He's like, I got there and it was so technical. Like I felt like I needed to be there to show support, but I felt like I wasted that entire time. And I said, well, you did waste it.
Mhm.
Like there's many other things you could be doing, and probably this is a big reason why I say, hey, we need to remove this social pressure of having to be at a meeting, and we do need to force, hey, an agenda should be sent out at least the day before. And I would even like to say, like, and I think some people have even don't necessarily understand what an agenda is, right? So to me, the first thing is, what is the real purpose of this meeting, and what is one goal that we're trying to get out of this? Now, it may spiral into many different things, but there should be one thing that we're trying to get out of this, and it doesn't need to be an hour. It should be, to me, I don't think meetings should be longer than 25 minutes, especially if you're meeting on a routine basis. Right? We already talk to each other all the time. Why are we doing it? Now, on some cases, you may need it to be longer. But if it's like, hey, we're looking to get some quick statuses, well, you know what? I should already know all the status. And you should be providing that status to where your peers kind of know what's going on. And now all we're doing at this point for that 25 minutes is asking questions about whatever was in that status report. Because if we get that done, then we just save so much time. And if you happen to be unavailable, any one of your peers can kind of help out while you're on vacation or whatever, because everyone needs a break. So we know what everything's going on. Um, and, I kind of suggested like maybe we need to start getting more people like dedicated to just taking meeting minutes and sending them out. And then, my boss was like, we can't get people to read reports that they're supposed to read. What makes you think we're going to get them to read minutes? And I said, well, that's where accountability comes in.
Right.
I said, they may not read it, but I read them. And I think that's a big difference amongst people who want to achieve greatness versus those that just want to get by.
Yeah, and so that's like a personal requirement for me is, if you want to invite me to a meeting, email me exactly what you said, the objective, one outcome. If there's questions that we're trying to answer as a group, email those to me beforehand. And so that's the agenda, more or less, right? And I'm quickly going to figure out, can I answer this in this email without any back and forth? Because if I can, then we don't need a meeting. We needed that email. The reason I do that isn't because I don't want to show up and talk to people.
I mean, that's a large part.
No, actually, it's not. It's not. I'm an introvert, and I'd rather put my energy into developing things because that's my personality. But the reason why is, if we put it in an email, then we have a record of what was done, and you just wrote the meeting minutes, and you don't need the meeting. And so you get a magical twofer for half the effort because it's done and it's there, it's archived.
I only have one problem with that. It was an email, and I hate email.
Well,
because just putting, so let's take it to a little bit more of the modern thing, which still accomplishes it, right? Hey, why can't this be done in like a Slack chat? Like, hey, here's the project that you've got your Slack channel, like whatever that one is, and boom, put it in there. Because I get too, like, for me, I get bogged down with too many emails, and I will very likely miss that email.
But you wouldn't miss a Slack message. Why? Because
Um,
I tend to agree with you, but I'm curious what the difference is to you.
uh, well, because like I'm not getting shit from 5,000 vendors and alerts and all that kind of stuff on that Slack
Mm,
channel,
mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
And so when you're like my, I literally have to, and I was talking about this with RB last Wednesday. I've got to dedicate
Mm-hmm.
some time to like literally at like 5:30 p.m. every day of turning off my phone, so to speak, and just putting in like literally like not even having my phone on me and go putting it away and set up to where if certain people call or text that it can alert through our system because
Yeah.
hey then it's an emergency. Like these are the only people I need to take. If it's my mom, my dad, my kids, um, my direct reports, one of my peers, if they send something, I might need to do it. But leaving that alone because otherwise I just get too many. It just goes off constantly. Like, it goes off all night long, um, and most of it's just alerts. So
Yeah. I agree with you because I think, I don't know if anybody's studied this. This would be interesting. I would guess that the cognitive burden, especially when you have a high throughput or a high rate of communication, the cognitive burden is lower on a Slack or a Discord or a Teams because it's all pre-sorted, right? That right? I'm only getting notifications or messages on a channel that I'm a member of. I'm not getting just blasted bullshit. Um, yeah, that's interesting to me. I actually feel the same way. It's just in some cases I communicate with people that aren't part of a team or a Slack channel, and so the default is email me. So, I guess to some degree, I should be more explicit. When I say email, I mean written communication.
yeah, I would say that they're likely not a part of my people that I need to do with anyway. So who cares? No.
I think part of it too for me now. This is the part that's close to me not wanting to go to a meeting, even though that's not the case. The case is I want people to think through what they're asking before they fucking burden me with it.
Well, yeah, fair enough. All right, so if they're not clear on what they need, I they shouldn't put that burden on us to get out of them what it is that they truly need.
That's right.
Right? Our all of their my time is no more or less valuable than yours, theirs, whoever. So if you're going to need my time, let's be very succinct about it. Let's make sure it is utilized because what happens next? Hey, this person has something. I'm like, I just don't have time for you because I know this is going to take like an hour. And then if you like, and I get that there's people out there that actually do need to talk through their ideas to come to that conclusion. I get that. Um, and everyone needs something. Well, that's not me, and I can do that to a certain extent. Otherwise, most of the time, I kind of hey, I think maybe you should probably talk to your peers or your teams about this before you come talk to me. If you need it, like you need to talk this out. I I don't have time. If I did that with every single one of my people, I would not get anything done.
That's what I like about written communication. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Is that it forces you to think about what it is you're thinking about. And I'm not saying I don't want to help people. Obviously, that's not true. I've spent, the last decade in almost a pure service capacity. I actually enjoy it, but I like being very deliberate about it. Um,
But we should be deliberate in everything that we do.
yeah, yeah, I think so. I think even in those moments where we want to be deliberate about not being deliberate, let's call it leisure time. It's
Yeah,
still deliberate.
absolutely. Let's be very, very, you know, deliberate on checking out because you need to recharge. You
Mhm.
um, and I'm finding meetings definitely make it more difficult for me to recharge. I mean, it's constant screen time, um,
Mhm.
and I much more prefer a phone call than being like on a Google Meet. Mainly because when I'm in a Google Meet, I really don't have an I prefer to walk around. I want to keep moving as much as I possibly can. If I'm on a Google Meet, I got to worry about this camera, and I'm not yet at a point where I'm going to wear one of those like those Halo-like helmets that has a selfie stick on the end, and I can put my phone on it and walk around it. I don't think I'm ready to do that just yet, but
See,
I had thought
that's
about
the
it.
other thing. Well, that's the other thing I was going to bring up in terms of meeting fatigue too, especially, I'm 100% remote. And I have been off and on for my adult life. And I think lots of people are. The shaming of people not turning their camera on. Listen, I don't give a fuck. I don't care whether you turn your camera on or not. I'm not here to see you. For me, it's not a visual engagement. It's an idea level engagement. And as long as you can articulate your idea or your questions about ideas, I don't care what you look like, whether you have your camera on or not. I don't care. And I don't want to hear about it, whether I have mine on or not. Maybe I'm eating because I'm being efficient with my time, right? I mean, who knows why? Who cares? That's the point. So don't add this extra layer of fatigue and pretend this. And this is the thing that really bothers me. Pretend that somehow it makes it more real. Bullshit. It doesn't. There is a difference, for better or worse, between this and if we were sitting in the same room, like when I was there and we did a couple shows. There's a difference.
I would kind of be offended if you turned your camera off now and we were doing a show like that.
Really?
Well, I mean, if we were trying to do a
Like
show
that? Like that?
yeah, I could just do the show by myself at that point. But but
Yeah, but this is meant to be a visual medium, right?
right. I'm 100% with you. I tell my people all the time, hey, look, I don't care if you want to turn your camera on or not. If you want to, great. I keep mine on because, hey, it's my meeting, and so I believe I should have it on so you know that I'm focused on my meeting. It's my meeting, so you don't have to. If you were hosting the meeting, I would think you should, but I'm not mandating it. Now, our HR department says like when they put out all these little rules, and I just go, a rules for rules sake doesn't do anything for me. And so they're like, hey, if you're in a meeting that's less than 10 people, you need to keep your camera on at all times. I'm like, no, I just think that's a silly rule. Um, why do they want it? Because they want to believe that they see you, that they know you're there participating in the meeting, and that observation is what's going to provide control. No, you know what's going to provide control? Giving it away. Hey, if you don't feel like you need to be at this meeting, just leave. Like you got other stuff, you've got something else more important. You don't get to absolve yourself from the responsibility of what your duties are. So if you feel like you have something else more important, then by all means, go do that. Just make sure it's more important.
Yeah, it makes sense to take attendance when you're teaching elementary school. It doesn't make sense to take attendance when you're teaching university. And we figured that out. We figured that out as a society, even though now it's being walked back because now there's this sense, and it gets attached to fine and trade and shit. But meetings are the same way to me. Like, spot on, 100% agree, dude. You're an adult, and I empower you and trust you to make the best decision for yourself and for the team and for the company.
Yeah.
It's not like by walking out, you get absolved of the responsibility. So you choose. And I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that one way or the other. And I feel that way when I walk out or choose. I've had people ask me before, well, why'd you decline that? Well, because I don't think it's a good use of my time. Why does that require more explanation?
Well, right. And then you and I have the same philosophy. So when it was with our students, and I take it the same thing with my employees. Hey, I'm going to miss class, and they will go into this long explanation. Like, I don't care. Okay.
It's none of my business, and I don't want it to be.
Right. When I got this one cat that he's like, hey, I got to work from home on Thursday, and goes in this long, huge diatribe as to why. I'm like, don't like, okay, like my response would have been the same no matter what. Hey, work it out with your peers. Make sure you've got everything you need in order to be able to get your job done, remotely, and whatever. I only care about. I honestly, I don't know why it's so hard for people to get this. I'm a relatively simple person. It's two things that I require from all of my people. You're going to make 2% improvement month over month, and you're going to do that by training 2 hours per week on the job. And then the other thing is deadlines, you're mainly going to be the one that tells me when you're going to get it done. And someone asked me, why is it that you put it on us to say when? I said, that way when you miss, you've got no one to blame but yourself. I didn't
That's right.
mandate it. You said, I can get this done by this date. I took a look. I'm like, okay, that date works. If it didn't work, my question is going to be, well, what would we need to do in order for you to be able to deliver this on this date? Oh, I need to move X, Y, and Z. Okay, now it's my job to say, what's a higher priority? If your X, Y, and Z are a higher priority, I'll say, okay, fine, I accept your date. If it's not, I can move X, Y, and Z in order to get the higher priority done. It's still your date you agreed to. It's pretty simple. Like you're going to get better, and you're going to deliver when you are telling me you're going to deliver. I don't.
Yeah,
I
you
don't.
pick your destiny. Yeah, you pick your destiny. I'm here to help you reach it. It's immaterial to me.
Yeah. Do you know how many? It's funny to me how many people still want to rebel against those two things.
Right.
Even in IT, where you like people are always. I've never been at an organization where people are like, yeah, I don't feel like training. I don't need that. I don't need that IT certification. Not joking. Like it's mind-boggling to me. But it's really funny because I had one person kind of say that, well, hey, Dan's got his favorites. Yeah, I do. And it's funny that my favorites are the people who get a lot of stuff done on time and do training, get certifications. They get the stuff done when they say they're going to get it done. And it's not just me recognizing it. The whole company recognizes it by voting them for Employee of the Month awards. And you know, but it's funny how they became my favorite. It's no secret
it's
sauce.
like saying I have a favorite woman in the world such that I married her. Yeah, you know why? Because she makes my life fucking better and none of the rest of you do. That's why.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have favorites, I have preferences, and it's all really based on merit.
Yeah. And you know what? This is what, like a conversation I get into people. We all are biased. You literally have a bias, which is a preference for the Mrs. Pittman than you do over every other woman on the face of the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, you're biased.
Yeah. I mean, like, so, well, yeah, right. Because somehow being biased has been conflated with some type of negative behavior.
Yeah.
And a bias inherently is neutral. It's just a skewing. It doesn't mean it's good or bad.
Yeah. All right. So
I wear glasses too. I mean, like.
Yeah. So all right. So how do you feel about the terminology of unconscious bias?
What do you mean by how do I feel about it?
No, what's your opinion on unconscious bias?
The thing is, I wouldn't say that unconscious bias isn't a thing. It's not emotional intelligence. But if there is unconscious bias, how do you measure it?
Well, that's biggest part of my point, because so some of them will get into this aspect of, well, um, you happen to walk into an elevator and you're in a hospital and you see a woman in scrubs and you automatically assume that she's a nurse. That's unconscious bias. I said, no, it's not. That's a learned behavior, which means you had to observe over a period of time that the probability of a woman in the hospital in scrubs has a higher probability than not to being a nurse, because there are more women in nursing than there are men. Um, but that doesn't mean it's unconscious bias. And so they go, well, you might have offended her. I said, well, trust me. You know how you know when you're talking to a doctor? Because they'll tell you they're a doctor. Okay.
Yeah.
If the person was a surgeon, they will quickly correct you because surgeons in the hospital are at the top of the food chain. You're not offending them because they're going to be like, no, I happen to be a cardiovascular surgeon and they're going to make you feel stupid, not them. Um, but I think to me, things that are unconscious, breathing, how your blood, the respiratory system, your cardiovascular system, you become conscious of it when you go, oh my gosh, why is my heart fluttering? Because now you have data that's different and you do it. Everything else and those kind of things, so those biases are learned behaviors. Now you can unlearn them, but you learn to be a jerk. You learn to be a racist. You aren't born with any of those preconceived notions.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not a psychologist, so this is outside of my field, but I wonder to what degree the research differentiates between an unconscious bias and a conditioned behavior, because they're not the same thing. And what
I've
you're talking about,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, what you're talking about strikes me as something that's a conditioned behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know to what degree, we could go look it up. I don't know to what degree a conditioned behavior can become an unconscious bias. I don't know that unconscious bias as a clinical term or a scientific term is real. I don't know. But like the thing with nurses, well, it's a conditional probability, and you're conditioned to view society that way. And guess what? It's fucking over 90% true. Now, okay, so if what you're really getting at is the social justice offense part of it, how about just not being an asshole and just talk to people? Like, this is the thing. Okay, so like I was thinking about this the other day. I have a friend who has gone through a bad part of life, and he gained a ton of weight. Okay, and I was in a social situation like a month ago, and somebody said to him, "Oh, X, you've gained a ton of weight." Well, like, what kind of small mind thinks to themselves that that's an appropriate thing to say to somebody? And so what I mean by that, because that's common in society, right? And that is offensive to that person. I'm sure that didn't make that dude feel good, right? And so, like, if you're in an elevator and somebody has on scrubs, what small-mindedness are you engaging in that what they are as a profession fucking matters to how you're going to talk to them? Like, that's the thing that trips me up about this stuff. It's not that you're biased, it's that you're an asshole.
True. So, Jordan Peterson says the same thing that you said. If there is such a thing as unconscious bias, then how do you measure it? And if you can't measure it, which basically means you can't observe it, then how can you do anything about it? And he goes on to say, even the APA kind of says, if there's a lot of debate as if this thing even exists or not, it seems to be just a term that the social justice side of the house has picked up on to try to do things. I think it really comes back down that's quite simple. If you're a jerk, stop being a jerk.
Yeah.
It's like, I had no, I was explaining to some people, hey, when all the stuff was going on with George Floyd, I asked, Sister Mary Margaret, I'm like, hey, I don't really quite understand this whole thing, like all lives matter. Why is that offensive? I don't understand. I'm like, hey, you're a woman of color. You were in the army. I think she was a captain in the army or something like that. I don't remember what, but it was something along those lines. And so she kind of explained it. I'm like, hey, well, let's do this on my show. So she came on and we talked about it. I don't have any problem being incorrect. I want to understand why someone might be offended by that because I don't have an intention. Oh, well, when I offend someone, it's, should be intentionally. An overwhelming majority of the time, I am not trying to offend anyone, and I want to understand the position of other people. Because here's something that I'll never understand truly. I'm not a person of color, so I'm never going to understand how they feel in any situation. Just like I'm not a woman. Just like I didn't grow up in Ohio and live in San Diego for all those years.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I don't know how that is because I've never done it. I can imagine, but imagining means I'm left to what my experiences are and trying to fill in those gaps. So why crucify me for trying to fill in those gaps and asking the question. Now, I think people who are reasonable and also want to be better in society and contribute to society, they don't get offended by the questions, and they try to, they have a respectable exchange of information,
Right. Right.
which is
I
completely
totally agree, man.
which is completely different than excluding people. Which, hey, the whole aspect of DE and I to me is like, hey, let's stop excluding people based upon characteristics that we see or learn about them because of their sexual orientation, how they identify, their religion. None of, maybe I'm just going back to being too simple. It's pretty binary to me. You are either a good person or you're not, and you can either get shit done or you can't.
Yeah. Well, right. And I would go so far as to say, because I've thought about it. If I'm privileged in any way, it's because I don't hang around assholes, so I don't have to deal with it. And when that comes into my sphere of existence, I just get away from it because it's not tolerable to me. I don't want to be around people like that. I don't want to be around the people that are small-minded, that can't think of second, third, fourth order consequences of their behaviors and words. That's not the people I hang around. So I don't have to put up with it because I don't have to put up with it.
Well, I certainly know I have a lot of privileges that I worked for, gained. I may have had some that, hey, because I'm a man and color of my skin may have likely afforded me some opportunities that didn't give others. But you know what? I feel like I give back. And I'll give you a great example of what just happened, which we just got word of the other day. So, this young lady in jiu-jitsu showed up to class and looked like, because Friday morning there was no school. So she was, I typically would see her in the evening classes. Like, hey, she must be, a student of some type, who knows. I don't ever really talk to her. But she was also there for my belt promotion and, you know, was participated. But she looked very disheveled. And so I come to find out she has been for this entire school year, massively bullied. Like they're chasing her down, they're beating her up. And I'm like, So I talked to our coach. I'm like, hey, I'm not looking to offend something, but one thing's like some people get really weird about being offered things, and I'm not looking to offend anyone. I don't know this person's family or anything along those lines. But I said, part of what I want to do, because I've gotten a lot of benefit from working hard, and a lot of people have helped me get to where I'm at. So I want to help others. So I said, hey, the missus and I will sponsor this person for 2 private lessons a month if the school will also donate 2 private lessons. They said, done, no problem. Let me talk to her. So we found out this past Monday that like the mother was in tears. Oh my gosh, thank you. Because I'm like, look, I don't want to just because this young lady, and I don't know exactly what her ethnicity is, but she's definitely a person of color, maybe of mixed because her mom is white and she's not. Maybe she's adopted. I don't know. Didn't ask. Doesn't matter. You know what I saw? A person being bullied and getting beaten up, and life not being not just fair. Some people being cruel. And so, what I want to do? I want to flip that script. Hey, you're not going to have to worry about it because all you need to do is you grab one of those people doing this to you and you choke them out to where they got snot bubbles coming out of them. Well, they're gonna stop messing with you.
Yeah, see, and I think for me that's a final thought because I got to run to this other meeting.
Yeah.
Funny enough, right? It's just like meetings. It's take responsibility, and so, again, the current social gestalt has conflated privilege with something that's negative. Privilege by itself is neutral, just like meetings. It's what you do with it it deserves judgment. And so if you're somebody that has some measure of privilege and you're doing good, how's that bad? Like, who the fuck is going to say, oh, you're a billionaire and you've given 90% of your billions away to charities to help the world? How's that bad? No, it's the people that hoard wealth and don't do good with it that I think are subjected. I'm not judging them personally, but they could be subjected to judgment, and rightfully so, right? The people that have earned privilege that do good with it, how's that bad? Isn't that the point of obtaining privilege? And I would say yes, it is.
Yeah, it goes back, like, it's funny to me, like, these billionaires are like, oh, well, they only gave $1 million. That was nothing to them. And I just go, well, how much have you given?
Yeah, like, why are you judging how much they give? Who cares?
Right? $1 million is $1 million. It's like, so even for me, it's not a ton of money, but hey, like, every extra penny that we kind of have is going towards our business. So it doesn't matter. This was not something that was planned for. It doesn't matter. Hey, you know what? I'll not eat out, you know, 2 or 3 times this year just so that this young lady doesn't get beat up. It's that simple.
Yeah, the people that whine about how much somebody gives are the same people that whine about how big their present is at Christmas. Fuck you. You got a present. Fuck you.
Yeah.
That's just like, what? What? Have some goddamn appreciation, man. You're getting me fired up, dude.
Good. Try to get you prepared for when you come back out and we roll.
Hey, man, anytime, I would enjoy it.
Be fun.
I like grappling. It's fun.
Yeah, I know you've got to go, so I'll make it try. I enjoyed, like, all of my traditional Chinese martial arts, but not to this extent. Like, it's like there was no, like, real chess match aspect going on. It was basically largely the faster person with better timing always wins a striking match. That's not the case with grappling.
No, not at all.
And I've, like, it's just so much fun. I thoroughly enjoy it.
Good, man.
Yeah,
Good.
I wish I wish I found this, like, when I was like 20, because then I would still be the UFC lightweight champ.
You found it when you most needed it.
Yeah, it's something that I definitely enjoy. But anyway, all right, my friend, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me once again.
Yep. Catch you later.
Cheers, everybody.
Take care. Bye.